Hi, everyone. I am Amy Stevens, a Keep Indiana Learning innovation coach here with one of my most favorite troublemakers, Paul Shircliff from Bloomington, Indiana, who proudly is in charge of the Uplands Maker Mobile. Paul, thank you so much for joining us as we continue our conversation about being a maker in the classroom. Would you please introduce yourself for those listeners that haven't had a chance to meet you yet?
Hello, I am at IU School of Education. I'm running the Uplands Maker Mobile, which roams the Uplands region, which is 11 counties, South Central Indiana. And I go to help educators do different stuff, do things differently, do things to me, what I think is better with hands-on interactive STEM and maker learning.
This is awesome. I'm so grateful for the conversations that we've had. And if you haven't had a chance to catch our conversations, we gladly invite you to tune in to some of our talks about, again, being a maker in the classroom. One of the reasons why this topic is super important to me is that I was able to find a friend, a partner, a troublemaker in Paul, who really helped me, even though I'm a STEM teacher, open up my eyes to what making in the classroom can actually look like. Any classroom, any subject, and so forth. And so we've been gathering some questions and some feedback from teachers. And, one of the pieces of feedback is that why learning that looks messy can actually be the most meaningful, right? And so think about some of our images that we've seen, or maybe some of our own personal experiences from classrooms way back in the day, and think about, hands getting dirty, busy, toys out, maybe kids coming in from playing outside and being, covered in mud or bringing worms in and so forth. And now think about in your classroom what that might actually be looking like. I mean, is it filled with mistakes? Is it filled with confusion? Is it filled with maybe learning something new? Paul, one of the neatest advantages that you get to have, as you mentioned with your job with the Upland Maker Mobile, is you get to visit different schools. I think I'm probably pretty safe to say that it's safe to assume that you've not seen the same classroom twice. Is that correct?
I've been to the same classroom twice.
Oh, interesting. Okay, tell me more.
Several times, but usually it's more of a new kind of thing. So new kids, new teacher. And we were trying to build recently more of going back to the same to try and build culture. Because if you just go once, you're not building culture. You're trying to start a fire, but going back, you build the culture, and it's nice to do it like at the beginning of the year, then the end of the year, and see, and because as a teacher in your classroom, it's sometimes hard to see the growth because it's minuscule on a daily basis, and that's what you see. But when I go in September and then go in again in April, the kids are just vastly different in how they're talking, what they can do. That's a neat thing to see.
Well, and I bet, you get to see not only the physical, products that are being either, products of learning, I guess would be the best way to say it. Because again, it could be in the ELA classroom or the math classroom or the science classroom or the STEM classroom, but you also probably get an insight into their mindset and how maybe that has increased or strengthened or been challenged over the time. I love that you get to go back. That's fascinating.
It's nice, like you said, seeing that mindset, not just the quality of the products and the projects, but the mindset of them, their approach, and what they're going to do with it. And the thing that we fear most is failure, but to get true learning, you have to make mistakes. You have to have things fail. If you got something right the first time, did you learn anything?
Yeah.
So that messy aspect, failure is a messy aspect, because it's like, now what? Well, now troubleshoot, now ideate, now, try something different. And that's creating that mindset of, okay, it didn't work, I'll try something else. But that's messy to have to not not get it in one shot.
It is. One of the things that I was thinking about is when sometimes at the end, if something didn't go the way that maybe the teacher wanted it to, or the students, they might ask the question, what went wrong? But instead, that mindset shift could go with, what did we learn? Right? And then modeling that curiosity and risk taking, and understanding that it's on the process, not just the product. One of the things that you and I talked about before going live was what that path looks like from start to finish.
And that is that thing that everyone thinks it should be a straight line, this nice linear progression to get to somewhere, and it is not.
Yeah.
When you first encounter something, it's tough to get any traction. It's tough to get going forward. You go sideways, you go backwards, you go around. And I think we expect our kids to do something new 6-7 times a day. But how often do teachers ever do anything new? Do they remember what it feels like to be completely lost with something because you have no idea, where it is? So seeing, getting used to that path not being this nice linear progression is something we have to get used to.
Well, and I love that, because so much of what we're asking our students to do is kind of like that spiral where math class every year, or social studies every year that they're in school, or ELA every year that they're in school, but every year it levels up, right? And so it's that exploration, that deeper dive over, I mastered it, I got the A, all is good. And I just think that this is such a great conversation, because especially for our admin, a lot of times maybe we may have some administrators that think when they come into a classroom that, everything is clean, everything is organized, everything is in its space, there's order to everything. Oh, that must be good teaching. But honestly, in my room especially, I know it's loud, it's busy, and it's highly imperfect. And a lot of times it's that, what do you notice? What do you wonder?
Yeah, because you have, you've got 30, you got 20 to 30 kids. You've got all those personalities. You've got all those strengths and weaknesses. You have all those different background knowledge locations. So they all have different starting points. They all need different things. And they're all going to get there in different ways. So it isn't nice and simple and neat and, and orderly. It's making it move forward.
And I love that
whatever way.
I was gonna say, I love that you just said that, because when I saw that image, it was really quick for me to assume that's what the whole group looks like together. But honestly, it's almost like, imagine that image times however many kids you have. Yeah. And that's every single seat in your classroom. Yeah. That human that's there is on their own path, right?
You can get a lot of parallels, which is nice. Mm-hmm. Because you can, you can group kids together, because often kids will self-group into people that have common, backgrounds, common interests. So that helps. So you don't necessarily have 30 of those, but you still got a lot, and they're all different. And you got to figure out as a teacher what each one needs to keep going down that path. You mentioned before, the idea of what went wrong, and it's like, that's a great question, but let's start with what went right.
Yeah.
And what did you do, and where did it go, and then what? And then we can try and figure out what went wrong. You don't just jump into what went wrong, because I don't know what went wrong. I didn't know what you did. I was working with some kids today, a mixed age group, doing some coding. And I, look at this group, and they've got things going, and I go around, check, and I come back, and their screen's blank. I'm like, where'd the code blocks go that you just had? We don't know. Like, what'd you do? I don't know. I'm like, okay, let's get them back.
Yeah.
And it's like they kept doing that for somehow, and I wasn't there with them, the constant time. So, it's messy. Things happen. They don't know where something went. I have, I like to say I have gremlins that follow me, and because things disappear, and it's like, I know I put that there. I know it's just not there. And so I think that's got to happen to kids too. That I don't know where those code blocks went. They just went away.
And that's just, I mean, think about it. Like that's probably times 20 in most teachers' classrooms. And I mean, that could be the mindset, right?
Yeah.
So, I was thinking about some things to give our teachers and our admin that might be listening today. Just if you've never really thought about the idea of being a maker in your classroom and how like that messy type learning could look, be thinking about building in some time for tinkering to experiment. And that could be multiple drafts in writing. That could be, I know one of the things I used to love as a math teacher is we would focus on a problem and I would be so happy to lift up the different ways that different students solved the problem but got the same answer. And or maybe it's the wrong answer and like students were able to help uncover like where maybe the thinking went a different direction and so forth. To celebrate like the messy middle. I know one of my teachers was talking to me and she was just like, you know what, I don't know that I've ever really celebrated partially like part of the way through a project. She goes, I find myself always celebrating at the end. And so she changed it and they put up like their work in progress. And those were the pictures that went on the wall in the hall. And I thought that was so cool. That messy middle.
Yeah, because it is, like you said, true learning is not neat and orderly. It is messy. It's the path, it's the stuff that you've got, the projects, the approach the kids all the different are taking. So that's something you got to pay attention to.
No, absolutely. Well, just a fun like little testimony from one of my third grade teachers. They are doing simple machines. And so they were going to construct a like a smaller scaled playground that uses specific machines that they've learned and then add to it as they learn more, right? And so this third grade teacher was just like, I don't know how this is going to go. Like, I'm not sure if we're going to be eating glue sticks. I have no idea. And I was like, hey, it's okay. Just like embrace the chaos. And so I was talking to the class after, and the teacher was like, that was a lot, but it was super fun. And another kiddo said, working with other kids was challenging. It was tricky. We didn't agree all the time. And then another student said, this was the first time I actually felt like an engineer. My hands were I didn't even know where the time went. And I was like, oh, interesting. And I said, well, was your teacher taking you through this step by step? And they were like, no. They're like, actually, we just got the project and we were told like a few pieces of criteria. And then time just sort of poof, like flew. And I thought, okay. And that's a lot of what you do when you bring the Maker Mobile to schools or sit down and brainstorm with teachers on how making could be integrated into any subject, any classroom, right? Connecting those projects and giving the teacher the freedom to say, like, make the time, lift the students up. And in that way, I'm lifting you up as the teacher, the leader of that room.
Yeah, you mentioned, doing something for the first time. We talked about learning for the first time, but doing a project for the first time, especially if you haven't done a lot of projects, and it's not. It's not that we make something at the end of the learning. It's we do the learning through the making, so that's why there's a difference between. So a lot of people already do making in the classroom, but it's usually like a last thing or after. But we need one at the front at the beginning. And I try to get teachers to say, just try one lesson, one unit, pick one, because it's going to be a mess. It's going to be something you're just not used to. It's going to feel like chaos. But you need to do one and get a feel for it, because we're used to our lessons that we have now that we've had for 10 years, and we've refined them every year, and they get tighter and neater. And it's like, yeah, that's not what this is going to be. The first time you do something, especially PBL, STEM, Maker, it's going to be chaos. and you've got to figure out how to work through it and just live with it. And then it's a great discussion to have with the kids. Like, how could this have gone better? What could we have done? What would be needed? What materials? What storage? What steps? And it's great because they get to do like a metacognition of their own learning kind of thing. And, so then the next year the project will be better. Then the year after that, it'll be better. You refine things. It's also based on your background knowledge. What was there? I had someone ask me about they want to build gingerbread houses with all 8th graders. Because they're going to do them partners. So they're only going to be 50 because there's 100 8th graders. And they're like, yeah, we want to do graham cracker houses. And I said, do you know how to make frosting? No. Have you ever made no, then that's not a good thing to start with. Let's just do cardboard. Because graham cracker houses are hard to do. They fall apart. They crumble. They crack. The whole point behind gingerbread houses is that the nice thick solid dough. So we got them to say, let's just do cardboard, and let's pick a size, some limits on the things, and so you're trying to get that set up, and the next year you fix it. Next year you change it. Next year you add what materials you want them to work from. Next year we add it as a laser cutter, maybe. I don't know.
I love that. And, I was thinking about just this idea of how companies like Crayola, for example, came about, where remember those color wonder markers where you could just color all over the paper and the only place that the color showed up was on the paper, but not on the table and not on the clothes, or like the washable stuff, or the air dry model magic. I remember when my kids were little, talking to some of my friends that were also raising little kids, and they're like, I do not know how you always get out Play-Doh and all the things. They're like, it's so messy. And I was like, I know, but they've made it easier for us. And maybe it was just me being a teacher, but let's not neglect the fact that when we're teaching, we do have to have those procedures in place for how to get things out, how to put things away, how to care for things. And so if you can, really get those across to your students, I mean, you've done this so beautifully with schools where you've just met the children. You're like, listen up, like, this is how we're going to treat these things. This is our procedure. This is what questions do you have for me? All right, let's go. And I love that, because that's how environments where messy learning come to life. And that learning is just, it's involving making that messy making.
I think when we try to make things too neat and too sterile, that we do a disservice to the kids, because the world is not neat and sterile. They have to learn how to navigate a messy world. And by having messiness in the classroom in a nice controlled environment where the risk is very low, that's part of the learning. It might not be an academic content standard, but it's a massively important thing for them to be able to develop.
Yeah. Well, my challenge to our teacher listeners is, the next time you try something new, maybe it's a recipe in the kitchen, or assembling some IKEA furniture, or figuring out a new app, or whatever it might be in your own space, think about documenting it, capturing it, and then sharing that with your students, because chances are you may not have nailed it on the first try, right? There were probably mistakes along the way, maybe a little bit of confusion, maybe even a mess on the counter. And I love for the students to connect with you on that level, and to see that you were learning too, and you were making, and that even in the classroom where we do have scripts, sometimes we have to follow, that experimenting, trying, adjusting, figuring things out as we go is learning. It is making, and it's okay if it's messy.
Yep, it's got to be. To some extent.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate those that are listening today. And Paul, as always, I appreciate you, and just that lens of listen up, it's okay. Learning's going to be a bit messy, and I'm here to give you that A-okay. And I just can't wait for some more topics of conversation that we can lift up, being troublemakers together and encouraging teachers to incorporate making in their classroom.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. We can't wait to have you join us again soon. Have a great day.